Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Tarrant County Five Stones. I know we've got a lot of people still in line for food, so please feel free to help yourselves. If you didn't get anything to eat, feel free to grab something and then have a seat. Welcome to our online crowd as well. It's great to see so many people here. So glad that everybody is willing to come and collaborate, work together and network. And really, this is the time to network. So before the meeting, after the meeting, if you have a chance to give somebody a business card, or if you're a volunteer and you want to connect with an agency, this is the time to do it. We have a lot of different agencies that are in the room that are looking for volunteers, and this would be a great time to connect. So just to start with some announcements, we want to say thank you to Catering to Love, who's providing the meal today. I also want to highlight Freedom Shield Foundation, who is our agency of the month. So they have a table. Hopefully you guys didn't run into it in the hallway. But they've got some information out there. They would love to answer questions. They would love to talk to you about who they are and what they do. You can also get information using that QR code on the screen. For our member agencies, if you have not already, please remember to submit your wins video to me so that we can celebrate next month the wins that your agency has had over the past year. And I want to share an announcement that's super special to us. We've just last week, we really had an honor, and it's only because of what you guys are doing that has made Five Stones successful. But we have received international attention. So we had 5 Sri Lankan delegates come because they heard about Five Stones and they wanted to come find out what Fort Worth and Tarrant County are doing to fight trafficking. What is it to have a collaborative task force and to really come and see what is happening in our area. So be really proud of that, guys. You are doing an amazing thing here and it's gaining attention. Also, this is the time of year when we do our annual gift card collection. So what we do is we collect $25 Amazon gift cards, and we will then in turn give those gift cards to survivors for Christmas, so that they can use that to buy presents for themselves or their kids or whatever their needs are. And if you would like to participate in that, you can follow that QR code, or you can always email me and I can get you connected. Just make sure you use my email address as the send to address. Do we have any agency announcements this month of anybody who'd like to come and give an announcement? Yes.
Morning, everybody. My name is Ty Bowden. I'm the Associate Director at the Net, and we are hiring, specifically, we are hiring a Purchase Program Director to lead our aftercare program for survivors. So if you or you know anyone who's interested, please go check out our website where you can get my email from Felicia. Thanks.
Do we have any other agency announcements? All right, then we will go ahead and move on to our law enforcement updates. And we will start with Fort Worth Police Department and Detective Matthews.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Okay, what I've got to report for this month is we've had actually had 12 cases come in. Of those, we're just gradually investigating, looking into writing search warrants so that we can build up the evidence in the case to start writing arrest warrants. So we'll be working on those. one of which, those cases stemmed from our last operation that we held in September that went into October. One of the girls we rescued from that operation ended up being part of a large ring that we somehow got in contact with Irving Police Department, who was investigating a large ring between the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area. And this girl we rescued happened to be staying in a place here in downtown. So we got with them, coordinated with them, and Irving PD coordinated with other agencies. It was a pretty large operation. I keep saying they ended up taking down, we assisted with the Fort Worth location, but they ended up taking down 6 locations. And from what I understand, 2 suspects were in custody for that. And they maybe rescued 1 or 2 other girls from the other locations. Some of the locations had already been shut down, but what was happening was the way they kind of had it operated was they had girls at different locations and operating out of that apartment complex for that geographical area where they were working. And they had apartments from Fort Worth all the way up to, I believe, like McKinney. So the other side of Dallas. So that was a big win for us, being able to shut down, 6 locations. Other news, we've had 5 tips come in. One of which we had a Department of Family Protective Services called in and was talking about a church in the Fort Worth area that is, and gave a list of names that is supposedly running a sex trafficking ring. So if anybody has any information on a church doing that, please contact us. But we're going to be looking into it. Kind of curious. It just came in, so we haven't reached out and talked to them yet. But since it came in from a respectable government agency, sounds like it's something worth looking into. That's about all I have for this month. So hope y'all enjoy and see you next month.
Thank you. All right, next we'll have the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office and Sergeant Harwell.
Morning, y'all. So as far as our agency updates going, this month's been a pretty exciting month for the Sheriff's Office, at least on the expansion of our group. We've approved and we're adding an analyst to our team. So that job is going to be posted shortly. If you know anybody that wants to apply to be an analyst for the Human Trafficking Task Force, there's going to be a lot of analytical data processing, hopefully knowing how to use the internet a little better than I do. Some open source stuff, and we're going to add them to our team. So I think they're going to be good to help with finding some survivors here in Tarrant County. We've also, to kind of help with that expansion, we've moved offices. We've got a different office space. We're no longer in the center downtown. We're kind of at an undisclosed location, but it's going to be more beneficial to the team, and we'll be able to get some better work done out where we are. Kind of the makeup of the Sheriff's Office, if you're not familiar, before I kind of run through these numbers. On our Human Trafficking Task Force, we have 3 investigators that primarily work trafficking, which is going to be sex trafficking, labor trafficking, those kind of things. And then I also have 1 investigator who kind of handles a lot of ICAC stuff, internet crimes against children. So there are going to be some things like that we're investigating. Our active cases right now, we currently have known suspects and cases open for 6 sex trafficking cases. Some of those actually came out of the jail through a new screening process that we're doing there. We're also working 3 labor trafficking cases. For those of you who are not very familiar with labor trafficking, those are, no pun intended, very labor intensive, and those usually take a while. But we've got known suspects on those as well. And for child sexual abuse material cases that we have open, we have 10 open right now, and those are actually 10 cases that have started in unincorporated Tarrant County. So it's out there. And these are the things that we're trying to handle and take care of. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We're very excited to introduce our speaker today. Mark Reidland joined Hope Local in 2015 and 3 years ago became their executive director. Hope Local exists to ensure vulnerable children get the opportunity to be loved, supported, and achieve success by mobilizing local churches to serve them. Mark is very passionate about seeing local churches care for vulnerable kids and families and believes this is a foundational function of Christian faith. Over the past 6 years, Hope Local has helped over 90 kids get adopted into their forever families, helped almost 200 families get licensed for foster care or adoption, and helped 30 different local churches start ministry or engage in an initiative that serves vulnerable kids and families. Mark is married to a wonderful woman, Chelsea, and has 6 amazing children, 3 biological and 3 adopted from foster care. Please welcome Mark Reidland.
Good morning, everyone. So great to be here with you. This is truly an honor for me. Ashamedly, I have to admit, I didn't even know this existed until my friend Wes invited me to come, and now I'm just so excited to see that this is happening. So I'll just start by saying thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for giving of your time, your gifts, your talents, your resources to push back against a very dark reality of our world. And I'm just encouraged to see so many people here engaged in this, that aren't standing idly by to watch this happen, but are getting in the game to make things happen. And so I'll just start by introducing myself and a little bit about our organization and kind of make the connection of our, I know it's kind of a niche, but we have a lane in this, and I think it's what we're gifted at, and it's a way that we can make a difference. And so I just wanted to introduce that to you guys. And so this started for us back in 2013. I was on staff at a church in West Fort Worth. And for some reason, we're not really sure why, we just had kind of a lot of families at one time that were getting licensed for adoption. And so we thought, hey, well, this is kind of cool. We didn't really ask, we didn't put this before anyone. We didn't ask anyone to do this, but we had 10 families that were stepping into this. And we thought, man, we should do something about this. And so we decided that we could kind of rally the troops around these families and build some volunteer support communities around them just to support them. And so that's what we did. We got some volunteers and built little, what we call care teams around each family. And the whole idea is that we would just provide meals or mow a yard or run an errand or just take little burdens off of the family so that they could focus on their big family transition. As we did that, it started to go really, really well. Our volunteers loved it. They were exercising their faith in ministry as they served these families, and they were growing and excited. And of course, our families felt supported and things were going well for them in their transition. And we thought, man, this is really cool. Maybe there's more families that want to get involved in this. And so we began to formalize some efforts around recruiting more foster and adoptive families from our congregation. And as we did that, we had many families respond. And I think we ended up with 30 plus families from our church that had taken placement, either foster or adopting. And it was really cool. It was amazing. So then we began to support those families as well. And we had all of this life, this ministry, this great fruit that was happening. And we thought, man, how do we take this beyond our 4 walls? And how can we serve vulnerable kids and families in our community? And so we began to develop some efforts on ways where we could advocate for kids in foster care that were waiting to be adopted and serve families, maybe bio families that are at risk of disruption in the first place. And all that started to go really well. And in the middle of all that, we began to get really convicted. We thought, why haven't we been doing this all along? This is really basic stuff when it comes to Christianity. This is really kind of just what we do, and we haven't really been doing it. And we thought, there's got to be tons of churches out here that are doing this way better than us. We need to connect with them. Let's find the churches that are doing this well. Let's learn from them so that we can continue to grow this and improve this. And unfortunately, we had a difficult time finding other churches that were really meaningfully engaged in this arena. So that's when the light bulb started to go off for us. And we came across a stat, and this stat haunts me to this day, and I can't shake it. And of course, I know stats are hard because it's hard to verify them, and they change constantly. And so we'll use this as a generalization. And these are numbers as of September. As of the end of September, the state of Texas reports just under 13,000 kids in foster care proper. There's almost 20,000 in supervised care, which seems like a massive number. It's a massive number of kids who are experiencing traumatic, difficult things in their life, some sort of loss of family, or oftentimes abuse or neglect. And there's a lot of kids that are experiencing difficult things. And that's a big scary number until you hear this other number. The state of Texas has almost 28,000 Christian churches, 28,000 congregations in Texas. And to me, at the time, to us, that really exposed a disconnect between the Big C church at large and what is a foundational function of the Christian faith, which is caring for the vulnerable. That's historically and biblically what Christians have always done. When there's hurting, when there's marginalized, when there's neglected and abused, that's where we step in, not to be the saviors or to solve all the problems, but to love and serve. And clearly that somewhere along the way, we've kind of stepped back from that and disconnected from that. And so in 2015, at the time, Hope Fort Worth was born as an organization, a nonprofit that seeks to inspire the local church to re-engage in this arena and to build some efforts and some ministries that serve vulnerable kids and families in the communities. And so that's kind of how our organization started, and that's kind of what we're after. And so I'll share a little bit, just kind of practically what that looks like for us as we're working to inspire churches to step into this. There's really kind of three main things that we want them to step into. And these three main things are what I would describe as, this is the base level. This is the bare minimum that we should be engaged with as believers. And these are the things that I think if we at large engage them would make a massive difference. And of course, our hope is that as churches build these initiatives, they'll build upon that with their own passions and their own giftings. So the first thing that we're trying to help churches do is recruit, foster, and adoptive families. Our congregations are full of amazing families, wonderful families that understand unconditional love, that understand sacrificial love, and also have the support community around them in their churches. So we think they're great candidates to open their hearts and homes to kiddos. And so we think that there's many families in our churches that would be open and willing and ready and great for this work. And so we want our churches to be putting this before their congregations. And by that, I mean, laying the groundwork theologically, but also just helping our congregations understand what's happening in child welfare. Here's the need, here's what's going on, because I can tell you from personal experience, most people have no idea. They have no idea. When they think of adoption, it's either, a kid from Africa or it's a healthy white baby. But that's not where the need is. Our system is full of teenagers, sibling groups, and kids with medical disabilities. And that's what we need to be putting in front of our folks. And so we believe there's tons of space there for churches to make a major impact in that area. The second thing we want our churches to be doing is building support communities around these foster and adoptive families. Bringing any new person into your family is not going to be easy. If they're completely healthy and there's no trauma, it's still not going to be easy. You have different personalities, different lifestyles that you have to mesh, and that whole transition can be very difficult. But when you add on top of that, every kiddo who's experienced, touched the system in some way, whether that was just a loss of family or they experienced neglect or abuse, they've experienced trauma. And that trauma affects the way that their brain develops. It affects the way that their emotions mature, and it certainly affects their ability to trust people. And that is a recipe for difficulty in relationship. And so when a family opens their heart and home and brings kiddos into them, they need help. They need a community of support around them to love on them, pray for them, be with them, take burdens off of them so that they can focus on those things. And we think, again, I believe the church is sort of called to this, but I also just really think that they're uniquely equipped because we're already community. We're already spiritual family. We're already sending meals when someone has surgery or is sick. We're already kind of connected in that way. So we think the church could really excel in this area. And then lastly, we want churches to get outside the four walls, find ways in their communities and our communities to serve. And particularly what I think there's tons of opportunity in areas where we can grow and make a major impact is stabilizing those biological families that are at risk of disruption in the first place. And I think at large, if we had most churches engaged in this, we would see a significantly healthier child welfare system. And so that's kind of the practical idea behind some of just the steps that we're trying to get churches to step into and take. But really beyond that, our real hope and our real desire is that this is more than just kind of an ancillary ministry of the church, but instead our hope is really that this is the culture of the church, As I've mentioned, I really believe this is just a foundational function of who we are as believers. But if you asked people in our community, hey, what is the church known for? I don't think they're going to say, oh man, the churches, they're the people that help people when they need it. I don't think that's our reputation. And I would love to see us so engaged in serving the vulnerable, serving people who need us, that's what we're known for. And that's the big picture, and that's the big hope for what we have going on. And so we've been around since 2015. And over those 7 years, we've had an amazing opportunity to connect with lots of churches. And so we've connected with 80 or so churches in North Texas that we've kind of felt to at least take one step into this, or they've participated in maybe one initiative. Just under 30 of those have really committed to building culture and building ministry long-term in their churches. And as a result, we mentioned some of these stats earlier, we've seen some amazing things happen. We're almost to 100 kids that have been placed in their forever families. And again, these are not healthy white babies. These are teenagers. These are kids who've really experienced some tough stuff. These are sibling groups, and these are kids with medical disabilities that really, statistically speaking, I always hate to say this, because God can really do anything, but statistically speaking, didn't have a lot of hope of finding a forever family. And so almost 100 kids have found permanency in a healthy and amazing way. And I'm so proud of our churches in our city for that. We're almost to 250 families now that we've helped get licensed for foster care and adoption. In the past few years, we've really made a push more towards helping families get licensed for foster care. And those are even more kiddos who've experienced some safety and love and connection from families. We've activated hundreds of volunteers to serve and support families. And then we've met thousands of immediate needs for struggling bio families, which has had an economic impact of well over $1 million. That's just 80 churches. 80 churches. There's 1,015 churches in Tarrant County alone. Imagine the capacity. Imagine the influence. Imagine the change that could happen if the church just did what the church should have been doing all along. We could really change things. And so it's really been an amazing, great start to this, but we have tons of work to do. And so you might be thinking, okay, that's great, that's nice, that's a cool thing, but what does that have to do with us and our time here together? Well, I've been in this arena for a little bit now, and I guess I'm technically still kind of young in this, but I think I've been close enough to see some connections. My wife and I, we've been working this for the past 8 years now. We've adopted 3 teenagers from foster care, and we've had 23 different kiddos come through our house as foster placements. And it's very clear to us at every step of the way that these kiddos, these youth that are in the system, that are in foster care, are very closely connected to the issue of trafficking. And here's what I mean. Kids who are in or have spent time in the foster care system make up a huge portion of known trafficking victims. And when you look at the risk factors that indicate a likely victim of trafficking, our foster kids exhibit many and sometimes all of those risk factors. And so I wanted to take a look at just some of the risk factors. What are the things that when you look at victims, like what are the things that are common in their lives that make them high risk for this type of activity? And there's really kind of a quite large list, but I think these are 4 that we would all kind of know and agree on. But number 1 is children and teens with adverse childhood experiences who've experienced trauma, especially those with PTSD. Does that sound familiar? Every child in foster care has experienced some sort of major loss or some sort of trauma, and a major portion of them have PTSD as a result. So almost every kid in foster care, by default, by the fact that they're there, has experienced one of the things that makes them high risk of being trafficked. Number 2, those who have a history of running away. Sudden change in stability, frequent relocations, a lack of felt safety, a lack of felt control are all common factors in kids who run away. And these are all common factors for our kids in foster care. Most of these kids, every day there's some other adult that most of them don't even really know that's making lots of decisions for their lives. And frequently it's changing rapidly. They might just They might go to school one day and then someone else pick them up because they're going to a different foster home. Their caseworker might show up at their foster home and say, hey, we're going to another place. Sometimes they're going to institutional care. There's constant change, there's no stability, and they have no control, and it makes them more likely to run away, which again puts them at a higher risk of falling victim to this stuff. The third thing is those who have depression, anxiety, or mental behavioral conditions. And again, we know that trauma is a major root for these things. When you experience trauma, you have a much higher likelihood of experiencing mental health issues, behavioral health issues. And again, a major lack of stability for these kids means a lot of times they don't experience the structure that we need to develop good habits and good behaviors, and they don't have common boundaries in their lives that help them navigate these things. And so there's often difficult behaviors. And so again, this fits almost all of our foster kiddos. And lastly, those who are experiencing homelessness. And we know that when kids age out of foster care, and I won't even use a stat because I'm sure you guys have all heard a million different ones, and they're all like a little bit different. And I always have a hard time trusting them. I'm like, is it 80? Is it 70? Is it 50? I don't know. But what I think we can all agree on is kids who age out of the foster care system, really, statistically speaking, again, I don't want to limit them. I don't want to limit them or what God can do in their lives. Statistically speaking, they have little to no chance of success. And a major portion of them will end up homeless, at least for a season, within their first 2 years of exiting care. And all of these things together puts a major risk factor on all of our kiddos who are in the foster care system. And so I really think that our kids that are in the system are a front line of this battle. They're in the front lines. And if we could find ways to take better care of them, if we could bring more stability to their situations, if we could provide more felt safety and better connection and less frequent change and all of those things, I think that we'd be able to head off some of these kiddos stepping into places that would have them be victimized in the first place. And so this begs the question, what can we do? What can we do to help? What can we do about this? And first I want to start sort of like, this is like big theoretical. Like I just want to talk a big picture. What can we do as a whole? And really, I think that the best way to define it is to help move the system from a place of scarcity to a place of more than enough. And here's what I mean by that. I'm a problem solver by nature. That's like that's my gift. I love to kind of analyze how things are going, how's this system working, what's not working, and let's come up with a plan to fix it. That's what I love. Like it really fuels me. And so when I first stepped into this, like I think it was kind of common knowledge, or at least the reputation is, man, child welfare is really broken and it's really not serving kids well. It's not really working well. And I was like, great, I'm here, guys. Don't worry. I'm going to fix the problem. Like I got this. I'll figure it out. And it took me about 2 seconds to realize that's not how it works. And over the course of the past couple of years, I've realized that it's not just one problem. There's many problems, and there's many problems at every step of the way across the spectrum of vulnerability. And so that means that when there's biological families that are struggling, whether it's because of addiction or poverty or whatever their circumstances might be, and they're at risk of losing their kiddos, there's not enough resources. There's not enough people that are willing to step in relationally and connect with this family and help them take steps towards health. There's not enough just immediate needs helps. My wife and I have he's 20-year-old now, son that we had adopted for foster care, and a couple months ago he wrecked his car. He just wrecked his car, and he called us, and we came, and we're like, okay, here's how you handle this. We're going to call the police. We'll file a report. We'll call the insurance, and we'll walk through this whole thing. And we were thinking about this later, like if he didn't have us to call to walk him through that, he would have had no idea what the next step was. He didn't know that he had to have a police report. He didn't even know he didn't even know who his insurance company was. He would have had no idea. And then he would have been without a car, no way to get to work. The next thing you know, he's losing his apartment because he can't pay his bills, all because he wrecked his car. And I'm so happy that we were able to kind of be there and just kind of parent him through that, which is one of the great joys of being a dad. And of course, I wanted to gripe at him. Hey, man, why were you looking at your phone, or why were you doing this, or whatever? But imagine how many folks out there don't really have that support or safety net to connect to. And so when there's families that are in those places that need resources, hey, I'm really working hard to do well and take care of my family, but I've run into this roadblock and I'm having a hard time getting past it. There's just not enough help in those places. And then when kids do need to be removed and they do need to be in foster care while mom and dad get healthy and get some things more right in their lives, there's not nearly enough foster families, not nearly enough. I got some updated stats from our community, our kids this morning. In Tarrant County, there's 1,600 kids in foster care, just over 1,600, and there's 420 licensed foster homes in all of Tarrant County. That's not even close to enough. It's not enough. And on top of that, there's not enough support for the foster families that are doing it. Many of our foster families that are in it are drowning because it's difficult, it's hard. And they don't feel supported. They don't feel like they have people on their side. And then, unfortunately, there's times where kids, it's not okay for them to go back to mom and dad and they need a new family. There's not enough families willing to open their hearts and homes and adopt these kiddos. And so they wait in the system for years and years and years until they age out. And then there's not enough support for those families. And there's not enough help for kids who are getting close to age out. And just every step of the way, every step is marked by scarcity. And it doesn't have to be that way. What if it was the opposite? What if when there's communities and families that are struggling, there was plenty of people there to be with them, to walk through stuff with them, to mentor them, to provide resources to them? What if there was more than enough people willing to provide a bed or meet a need to help them kind of get over the hump and keep things together? What if there was more than enough foster families? Just imagine. What if instead of scrambling and scraping by to find a placement for a kid, what if caseworkers had a list of hundreds of families to choose from? So instead of just putting them in a place, they were able to choose the right place for them. Gosh, that'd be amazing. What if there were more families waiting to adopt than there were kids waiting to be adopted? We would limit and minimize their time and care. They'd be moved into stability and longevity and felt safety and connection much sooner. We'd limit and minimize their trauma. We would reduce every one of these risk factors in their lives and make a major impact on their closeness to this arena. And so that's the big picture. That's what we're after. That's what we're hoping for, is that we can move from scarcity to more than enough. And some of you guys are close enough to this or been around this long enough to know where you're sort of internally rolling your eyes, and that's okay. That would be me. I'm a skeptic kind of guy. I'm an eye roller. And you're thinking, man, we've been talking about this forever. We've always known that child welfare is broken and there's issues and there's not enough. We've always been talking about it, but nothing ever changes. Well, I just want to challenge you and encourage you to not fall into that trap. We can do it. I'm talking about churches. That's what I know. That's kind of my area of influence. And there's more than enough just in churches, but of course there's so much more to a community than churches. There's so many other ways that people can plug in and get involved. There's more than enough resources for all these kids and all these families. And I'm telling you, I fully believe that we can bring health to the system. And when we do, much less of these kids will be victimized and fall into these things, because we'll reduce these factors. Now, that's what we can do collectively as a whole, move from scarcity to more than enough. But what can you do? What can you do? And this is where it gets tough. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we make the hard asks. And of course, I know you guys are representing all sorts of different agencies and churches and places and groups. And so this is really geared towards the individual. This is the stuff that you might bring back to the people that you're connecting with. We need foster parents. It's the greatest need in child welfare. And let me just add this. We don't just need foster parents. We need good foster families. Families that are committed, bought into this, that are ready to walk through difficult and tough things, but to keep moving because it's worth it, because it's worth investing into these kids. We need families who are willing to adopt. Then we need lots of people who are willing to wrap around those families, to serve them, to partner with them, to lock arms with them as they move forward to serve these kids well. Those are just the basics. And so you guys need to know that those are needs. And so you not only is it applicable for you to consider, but also when you're kind of moving forward, your efforts to combat these things, this is things that can be in your mouth. Well, how can I help? What can I do? How can I get involved? Have you considered foster care or adoption? Those are great things for people to do. You can connect your church. We'd love to connect with your church. We'd love to help your church kind of step into this arena and build some efforts and initiatives that serve vulnerable kids and families well. And then I have be an advocate, but on my notes, I put be a good neighbor. Be a good neighbor. This is the most underrated thing I think that we do. I was working in this ministry, in this arena for years before I realized that the lady that lived across the street from me was a foster parent. And all this time, I've just been coming and going and doing my thing, worried about what's going on in my life. I never even noticed that she was a foster parent. And there's probably a big portion of us that in our immediate sphere of influence, in our neighborhoods, have foster and adoptive families or bio families that are struggling. And we have to take note. We have to step into those places and serve those families. And so now we care for Miss Lavinia across the street, and we help her provide meals for her. We pray for her. We when she's got a crisis or emergency, we're there to kind of step in and take care of kiddos for her for a little bit. And we keep an eye on each other's kids, and she'll call and she'll say, did you know so-and-so was doing this? And so we're building community. And I think it's the most overlooked aspect. I'm all for it. I'm very pro, let's all collaborate and make some big movements together. But if we neglect hey, what's right here in our neighborhoods, we're missing a major part of the battle. So be a good neighbor, know what's going on right in your area. And then lastly, there's tons of opportunity to meet immediate needs in our community. There's places, there's an organization or an initiative that we're connected with that we lead for Tarrant County and Denton and Johnson counties called the Care Portal. So Care Portal, it's kind of a weird name. It sounds like a thing you step into and get moved to a different dimension or something. That's not what it is. It's just a website. It's a platform where caseworkers from DFPS, from our community, our kids, some child placement agencies, some school districts, anyone who's in the lives of vulnerable kids and families that can identify needs, they're able to note those needs and then post them on this Care Portal. And then the community and churches that are close to those families get notified and have the opportunity to meet those needs. And of course, meeting those needs could stabilize a shaky situation. It could keep a family together. It could keep a kinship placement together. But even more than that, there's opportunity there for relationship. There's opportunity for some long-term health and growth brought into those situations. And so anyone can be a part of that. You don't have to be a part of a church to be a part of that at all. Careportal.org, and you can sign up and you can see tons of needs that are available that are going on right here in our community. And so that's the big idea. I really truly and wholly believe that if we can bring more health to what's happening in child welfare, we'll prevent a big group of kids that are very at risk from stepping into being victimized into trafficking. And so that's what I wanted to encourage you with and share with you guys today. But I wanted to open it up just a little bit for you guys to. There's my beautiful family. They're all starting to grow a lot bigger than that now, but anyways, we did it all backwards. We had three biological boys that were 3, 6, and 9, and adopted Avery when she was 16 when she moved in, turned 17 that month, and then Joe moved in when he was 14, and then Jonah was our last adoption in 2020, about a week before he turned 18. So we did it all backwards, but that's our family. But if you guys have questions, I'd love to hear from you guys. If you have questions about what's going on in child welfare, if you have questions about church ministry or other ways for you to engage, I'd love to hear from you guys. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions or anything you'd like to add? Yeah, you can connect with me. There's our website's hopelocal.com. There's a form on our website where you can schedule a meeting with us, or you can just shoot me an email at mark@hopelocal.com, and we'd love to be a partner and a resource to you guys. Anybody else? Does this resonate with anybody? Yes, ma'am. Yes, well, we manage 3 counties, or it'll be more soon, but yeah, it's in Tarrant County, and it's all localized. So when you sign up, you'll only see the requests that are geographically local to you, because again, it's great to meet the need. That's the first level, but ultimately we want to build relationship and community. That's really what we've identified as what the missing link for this. Why do families kind of often stay in cycles of tough stuff, for lack of a better word, and it's often because they don't have community. They don't have, felt safety and a group behind them that love them and believe in them and are on their side. And so you'll only get the requests that are geographically local to you, so that those connections might happen as well. Yes.
With the holidays coming up, what do you feel is the greatest?
Foster families. The question for those online, the question was, with the holidays coming up, what are our greatest needs? And I could roll out a Santa Claus list of needs. I don't want to back off the idea that foster families are still the biggest need. We do participate in an angel tree program that I actually really like, because we work to make sure that kids who are in institutional care, so if you're in a residential treatment center instead of a foster home, you're a little bit less likely to kind of enjoy holidays as normal. And so our angel tree program works to make sure that those kiddos are getting, taken care of and included. And so that's a thing. My wife, Chelsea, I don't know if there's a place for anybody to get information about that, because we typically kind of push that out through churches, but yeah, Chelsea at hopelocal.com if you'd like to participate in those things. And am I missing any big ideas on what's needs are? Yeah. I mean, listen, foster families, beyond that, our kids need mentors. They need CASAs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with court-appointed special advocates. One of my favorite things, probably one of the most impactful things that I've seen. It was major in our adoptions. It partners you with a kiddo where you can be in their life, get to know them. You're steady, regardless of who their caseworker is, you're with them. You get to advocate for them before the courts. You get to make sure that the state's taking care of them in the right way, and they make a major influence. So mentors, CASAs, foster parents, adoptive parents, there are some opportunities to provide some gifts and some needs as well. But we have an initiative at Hope Local called Hope Now. There's a lot of hope going on at our organization, okay? So it's called Hope Now, and in which we partner with churches to be able to advocate for one specific kid. So what we found is a lot of times when we get up and say, hey guys, there's 15,000 kids in foster care or whatever, we got to do something. People have a hard time connecting with that because the problem's too big. The problem's, it's this thing over here that I don't really know how to connect to. So instead, we partner with churches for them to be able to advocate for one specific kid. And so we get to make a video, get special permission, work with the state on this, and we get to make a video of that kid where they get to show their beautiful little face. You get to see that they're not a statistic, that they're an actual human, and they get to share a little bit about their story. Our churches play that in front of the congregations, and we ask our congregations to share that on their social media so that they get to kind of play a part in advocating for this kid to be adopted. And so we have several of those on our website as well. We'd love for you guys to share those and advocate for some of our kiddos that are waiting to be adopted.
An online question from Pam Darrow, who is a CASA and or volunteer.
Yes, both great organizations.
She asked, as you recruit new churches, do you replace your training process so that each location is controlled and operates as one source?
No. Here's a difficult reality of church world. 0 churches want me to come in and tell them how to do church. 0. That's how I thought I was going to do this. I thought I was going to go in and be like, you're doing it all wrong, guys. Here's what we need to do. And it just doesn't work that way. And so we partner with every church to try to find a way for them to engage that fits their mission and fits their vision. And of course, we always kind of encourage them to step further than that sometimes, but every church will kind of step into this in a different way. But ultimately, our hopes are that we'll move them into a culture place. But of course, we do have like standards of safety and all those things that we monitor. But yeah, every church kind of approaches this a little bit different. Great question. And thank you for what you do. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do. It's really, I noted that your references to trauma impact has and your support. Something I've seen is that foster parents, adoptive parents, way underestimate how hard it is, even to the point of getting, okay, I changed my mind, we're not.
Yep.
So can you describe some of what your support group looks like?
Yeah, the gentleman was just making a great point about how trauma really affects the transition of kids into your home, and how oftentimes that there can be behaviors or situations that are more difficult than families are prepared for. And so really, I just want to make a note before we talk about how we support families. That is one of the most important things when I talk about helping churches recruit families, I don't just mean like, hey, you guys, you should adopt. I mean setting healthy expectations for those families as you're recruiting. So we want them to know, hey, this could be soul crushingly difficult to somebody. My wife and I have shed many tears. Our adoptions have not at all looked like what I imagined them to look like. You know, we had 3 boys and I was the greatest dad ever and they loved me. And I just imagined when we adopted these kids, my love was going to solve all of their problems. And, you know, all they need is just a good family to love them. And that's not at all the case. And I was figuratively and literally punched in the face, you know, very quickly to see that that's not how it works. It's not how it works. And so that's a major portion of this. When we're in our recruitment efforts, we have to work really hard to set healthy expectations, to prepare people to step into some difficult things. And so with our support, unfortunately, the state of Texas is fantastic at lots of things. But if I can have one bone to pick with the state of Texas, there's a major lack of resources for mental and behavioral health issues. Is significant. And so when families do open their hearts and homes to these kiddos that have tough situations, it's very common for them to end up in crisis mode very quickly. And so we're of course limited by some of those resources as well. But what we'd like to do is make sure that first of all, they're prepared as they're stepping into that they know what some of the possibilities might be. And then we have some structure in place. And so we have respite certified families that can come in and watch kids while they deal with this situation. We oftentimes scholarship families to get you know, mental and behavioral help outside of, you know, what normally they'd have. So most kids in foster care qualify for Medicaid. And so they can get mental and behavioral health stuff through Medicaid, but the quality and quantity of those resources available for those kids is just not enough. And so oftentimes we ask churches to be prepared to monetarily invest in some of those resources for our families. And those are kind of some practical ways. But then in just general, for us as a family that went through some really tough stuff, it was the things that made the most difference is just having people on our side. And so our life was literally on fire. We had a difficult situation one night where my son, he was struggling with addiction, and we had a big event at our house, and he was very upset with me, and we had a physical altercation, bunch of holes in our walls. He went outside and broke every window of my car, kicked dents in all my car. Then he came back and took our pumpkins that we had sitting out from Halloween and threw them through all of our windows and was just screaming, you know, I hate you. I hate you. And I'll tell you, I never felt like so much of a failure in my entire life. But to have at 1 a.m., 5 of our friends come over from church to board up our windows and sweep the glass off our floor and to sit on our couch and cry with me and pray with me and just be with us in that moment, just to have someone go, you know, we're here with you. That was so meaningful and so helpful. And so there's really lots to it. There's some practical ways that people can help. We had people, when we adopted Joe, he wanted to play baseball. We had a family take us to academy. It's so expensive to buy baseball stuff. He needed a glove and a bat and a uniform. We had a family do those things, but also just having emotional support is really, really helpful. And a great way that people can get involved in church. I really think there's tons of opportunity for us at large to get better at that and dial that in. But there's practical and kind of emotional ways that people can help.
Several more questions.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, can you describe the path for families considering foster parents, and also the path for families considering adoption?
Yes, great. I'll start with CASA. CASA is great. I don't know their exact training and qualification process. There's an application process involved where you'll reach out to your local CASA office. There's an application, an interview, and then they provide a bunch of really great training for you. And so I don't think the process is long for them, but it's just some, you know, they make sure that you're okay. They make sure that you're, you know, they don't want to put someone in a kid's life that's going to cause them issues. So they'll do some homework on you to make sure that you're a safe, healthy adult. And then once they agree that that's the case, they'll provide some training and give you some resources before they launch you into that. If you're interested in foster care or adoption, the first step is to choose a licensing agency. You have to be licensed to be able to have kiddos into your home. And there's tons of agencies in our area. There's tons of them, but the first step is choosing one. We'd love to help you. We have recommendations. All of them are good, we have some recommendations that we could share with you. Looking at you online, we can share with you. You can send us an email, markerchelsea@hopelocal.com, or you can fill out the form on our website, and we'll send you our list of agencies that we have a great relationship with. But that's the first step. So you'd reach out to an agency, you would fill out a small application, and they would sort of kind of start to get to know you as a family and make sure that you're in a healthy place to do this. And then again, they'll provide lots of great training for what you're heading into. And it's different with every agency, but that can be depending on your schedule and how available you are for training. That could be just a couple-month process to a 6-month process to a year process, and really similar for adoption. The first step is choosing an agency, reaching out, and starting the process with them. Great question. Yes.
Can you describe the ideal approach for your organization to engage with the new church congregation?
Yes, if we're engaging with the congregation, I think you have to lay some theological groundwork. What we've found in all of our churches is that most people think that this is just something that's reserved for people with like a soft heart. Like my wife, she would sell our house and give the money away at a heartbeat if I wasn't paying attention. Those people that have like the gift of mercy, that are always interested in and so most people think that this is just reserved for those people, and that couldn't be further from the case. And so what the message that I really think we have to bring to our congregations is the idea of this is for everyone. And so we used to have an orphan weekend at our church, and we had it for a couple of years, and we realized that people would show up with that wall already of, yeah, I mean, it's great that you guys are doing that. I support you, I'm for you, but that's not for me. And I don't believe that that's the case theologically. I believe if you're a follower of Jesus, this is for you in some arena, in some way. And so not that you have to sell the farm and devote your life to kids in foster care, but there's some way, somehow that you can connect with this. And so I think that's the most important message that you can get in front of people. And there's a million ways to say it. I won't preach a message here, even though I'd love to. I won't preach that, but the idea of, hey, as believers, as Christians, this is for all of us. This isn't just for Chelsea's who have the gift of mercy. This isn't just for so-and-so who has that resource. It's up to me as a believer to find my fit in this, find how I can play a part in this, and serve vulnerable kids and families. Great question.
Other local police departments help with targeting trafficking needs, identification before, during, and after placements of children. And what guidelines are in place for recognition of trafficking indicators?
That's a question that's way too smart for me. I do have a practical thing. I know most neighborhoods have like I think it's called an NPO, or you guys will probably hate me for not knowing this, but our neighborhood had a specific officer that was kind of assigned to our area when we had needs. And we reached out to that officer and said, hey, just FYI, we have kids in our house that have experienced some tough things, and it's quite likely we'll need to call you for help at some point. And having an officer that was bought into that idea of they're on my side, that they recognize that we're trying to do something good and they wanted to partner with me in that, was incredibly helpful. So we had a temporary emergency placement of a kiddo who was really struggling. And he really went off the rails one night, and he was threatening, and he just needed some higher level help than I was able to offer him at my home. And given some of the things that we've gone through in the past with our kiddos, I was really sensitive to that moment, and I needed help very quickly. And to be able to call them and have them be there. Our agency said, how in the world did you get them there so fast? And I said, well, they care about us. Like they're with us. That made all the difference in the world. So if you're an officer, if you would get to know and kind of commit to being connected to the families that have kiddos in their home that have experienced trauma, that'd be a very practical way. Just that they know that you're there if you need them, that you can support them. That's a very practical way to help. And often if you can, often there's times where you can bring stability to those placements. And again, if you can bring stability into these families, you'll often reduce some of these risk factors for these kids, and that might enter that. So I know I didn't answer all of your questions. I'm sorry. That was a very great question, and probably for someone much smarter than me. What else? Anybody just have anything, thoughts to add, or anybody disagree? I like to argue. Let's
That's a good question. So we posted the match event that y'all have facilitated. I know there's some communication that needs to be up front of match event. That sounds very dehumanizing, right? That's what it is, but it's the matching of the children in need with families that are willing to look into fostering or adopting the church. What are those successful? Are those helpful? Is that a way for a church to engage?
Yeah, that's a practical way for churches to engage. So earlier in our organization, we would partner with churches to have match events where we would invite families who are licensed to adopt, who are looking for their kiddo to adopt, and we would advocate for kids from our community that are waiting to be adopted. And so we don't bring kids to our events. When we were adopting, we felt like that was really weird. I know some of those events are successful, so I don't want to speak against them, but that's just not how we do it. So what we would do is have volunteers decorate tables that represent the kids that we're advocating for in like a creative way. So it shows their personality and brings humanity to them instead of just a picture in a paragraph. And so, for example, if Bobby likes the Rangers and he's a big baseball fan, you might have a baseball helmet and a baseball bat and a glove or whatever. And you just never know, a family walking by that might catch, he might go, well, I like baseball. What's going on with Bobby? And you might make some connections there. And so match events are a fantastic way to advocate for kids so it's so common and often that these kids are just a statistic, but it's so different when you kind of see them, you see their personality and who they are. That does something to people internally, and it inspires them. And oftentimes, really probably the greatest success of our match events is families deciding to get licensed. So some of our volunteers or families that came to the events would see these tables and go, oh my gosh, I need to do something about Bobby. I got to do this. And so we made matches. There was adoptions that happened, but even more importantly, there was families that decided to adopt as a result. And in the past year and a half, we really shifted our focus, not away from that, we include that, but we really want to focus on recruiting foster families, and then even take it a step further. Not everyone's going to bring a kid in their home, and that's okay. Not everyone should. It's hard. But everyone can do something. That's the message. Everyone can do something. And so we've shifted to what we call brave events, where they're just recruitment events, where we invite anyone and everyone, and say, hey, come learn about what's happening with child welfare. You get to see some tables of some kids that are waiting to be adopted. We'll also have some child placement agencies there where you can ask questions about the licensing process. You can even make connections and decide which ones that you like. But also we bring lots of nonprofit organizations that are local to that community where people can find ways to volunteer and to serve and to plug in. And so the whole idea there is to come find your fit. And so that's just an easy, practical way for churches to have some efforts towards recruitment and advocacy. So awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much. So that was extremely motivating, a lot of information. I know he gave out some email addresses, but if it's easier, you can always email me and I can always get you in contact with him and Chelsea. And I also want to say, he mentioned the NPOs. We do have neighborhood police officers, and if you don't know who yours is and you want to know, feel free to reach out to me and I'll help get you connected there too as well. Thank you for coming out this month, and we will see you next month.